The cool breeze of the New York night whipped at Daniel's cashmere jacket, but he barely felt it. The adrenaline from closing a multi-billion-dollar deal was still coursing through his veins, a familiar high that was the spice of his life. Daniel Price, at 38, was the epitome of success. A billionaire CEO who built his empire with the cold precision of a surgeon and the insatiable ambition of a predator. He dismissed his private driver, preferring the brief solitude of his luxury car to process the day's victory. The car door squeaked softly as it closed, isolating him from the city's noise. He loosened his Hermes tie, leaned back in the leather seat, and closed his eyes, allowing himself a rare moment of silence. That's when the voice erupted. "Shut up!" The scream, high-pitched and full of fury, echoed in the car's silence. Daniel's eyes snapped open. His body reacted with the furious instinct he used in boardrooms to crush competitors. How had a child gotten into his car? And more importantly, why was she screaming? He turned, ready to deliver one of his icy stares, the look that made executives sweat and lose their composure. Got in the back seat. There was no bold intruder. There was only a little girl, small and frail, no more than 5 or 6 years old. She was alone, her eyes squeezed shut, her hands covering her ears. Her scream wasn't for him. She was screaming at herself, or at something invisible in her mind. On the seat beside her was a battered teddy bear, with one eye missing and its fur worn out by time. The seat looked empty, but to her it was occupied. Daniel's initial shock turned to confusion. Where was her mother? The driver? The police? He reached for his phone to call security, but something made him hesitate. The girl's posture, the way she was curled up, wasn't that of a child having a tantrum. It was that of someone fighting. "Ghosts. Hey," he said, his voice less harsh than usual. The girl curled up even more, but didn't open her eyes. She began to rock back and forth, a rhythmic and unsettling motion. "Shut up. Shut up. Shut up," she whispered now, a mantra of despair. Daniel didn't know what to do. He was a man of numbers, contracts, and cold logic, not of emotions and childhood trauma. He put his phone away and turned fully in his seat, trying to approach her cautiously. He noticed her simple clothes, a light dress, unsuitable for the cool night breeze. Her dark hair was dirty, and a dry chocolate stain was at the corner of her mouth. "Who is telling you to shut up?" he asked softly, trying to sound as harmless as possible. The girl stopped rocking. Her eyes opened. They were dark brown and deep, full of a sadness that seemed too old for her face. She looked at the empty seat beside her. The teddy bear was turned on its side, as if it had been thrown there. "Daddy," she replied in an almost inaudible whisper. "He always said shut up when Mommy sang to me." Daniel's stomach churned. The image forming in his mind was of a silent violence, of a home that should have been a sanctuary, but was a battlefield. "Where is your father now?" he asked. The girl didn't answer. Instead, she picked up the teddy bear and hugged it tightly. Her voice was thin, but the story unfolding in her monologue was one of immense pain. She began to talk about her mother, who had a voice like an angel and sang a lullaby about stars and rivers. She spoke of her father, a man who always seemed angry, who never liked music, and who often yelled at her mother. Her shut up wasn't rudeness. It was a painful imitation of the last thing she heard her father say before their car crashed. Her memory was a blur of flashing lights, the sound of twisting metal, and her father's final words echoing in her head. In that instant, she believed he had caused the collision because her mother was singing. The teddy bear, which the girl called Daddy Bear, was her confidant and her defendant. She would yell at it, trying to make the memory stop, but the sound of "shut up" continued to haunt her. Daniel listened, speechless. He, who who negotiated with millions of dollars and fired employees without hesitation, was there, completely disarmed. He realized that the little girl, whose name was Lily, was in the back seat because after the accident, paramedics found her clutching the teddy bear in the back seat of the crushed car. She had been taken to the hospital, then to an orphanage, and, due to some bureaucratic error, had run away and sneaked into his car. She had seen Daniel's car, an exact replica of her best friend's father's, and in her innocence, believed that if she hid there, she would be found by him. He felt small. His life of luxury, his business deals, and his millions seemed insignificant in the face of that little girl's pain and loneliness. He, who always saw himself in control, was at the mercy of a force he could not negotiate with, intimidate, or buy, the pure and unbreakable pain of a child. Without thinking, he moved to the back seat, pushing aside the papers from his latest deal to make room for the girl. "It's okay, Lily," he whispered, his voice surprisingly soft. "He's not here. No one is. Just us." He didn't hug her, didn't touch her. He just sat in silence, letting her talk. With each word, a story of despair and loneliness unfolded. She talked about missing the smell of her mother's food, the silence of the night in the orphanage, and the song she was afraid to sing. The night wore on. The city outside grew quiet. Inside the car, Daniel's world disintegrated and was rebuilt. The multi-million-dollar fight he had just won seemed so trivial. What had he really gained? What had he really lost? Life, he realized, wasn't about what you accumulate, but about what you give. He, who had built a life on ego, was watching it crumble before a child who had nothing. The next day, Daniel Price's world would be turned upside down. News channels would report his disappearance. His team of lawyers and advisors would launch a frantic search. But for now, he was just a man sitting in a car, listening to the story of a little girl who taught him the true meaning of shut up. He knew that what he had heard was not a reprimand, but a desperate cry for help, a scream of pain that society had ignored. The encounter in the car wasn't an accident. It was a test. The universe, or whatever orchestrates lives, had put that girl in his path to see if Daniel Price's soul, hardened by years of ruthless success, could still be touched. And that night, the voice that screamed in the car wasn't the girl's, but that of a heart that, for a long time, had been silent. That billionaire, with the world at his feet, finally found the one thing he couldn't buy: redemption.